I want to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies and the guy that I think is maybe the biggest swing guy in terms of the playoff race in the Western Conference. It's Dillon Brooks. Uh, do you understand Dillon Brooks as a player? I
Yeah.
realized that today. Like, I feel like I don't, I understand him. I understand why he's useful. I think I almost don't understand how he is so successful in some way.
Uh, I think the longer that I have watched Dillon Brooks, the more I've appreciated him as a player. I don't understand,
Yeah.
like, I don't appreciate some of his antics. To be fair, like, I think Donovan Mitchell had every right to swing at him, if
Yeah,
we're
I do
being
too.
honest. But, uh, like, I think exactly like you're hitting on. Like, a lot of people get frustrated with Dillon Brooks, and I get it. But I also think it's indicative of what the roster needs. Like, they need somebody who is willing to take shots. Sometimes it can be too much, but like outside of Ja and Desmond Bain, like who on this roster are you relying on to create with the ball in their hands? And even then, like Desmond Bain is partially like what makes him so good is what he does off the ball. Like obviously he's grown as an on-ball guy. It hasn't hit quite the same since he came back from injury, but like they need somebody in the as the shot clock's winding down after the ball's out of Ja's hands. Somebody has to be able to take shots, and that's often Dillon Brooks. And it's
It
not always
is.
as good as you want it to be. It's not always pretty. It's often very much so not pretty. Um, but then you add that with, I mean, he is a tremendous defender. I don't believe
Yeah.
in his defensive player of the year case.
No.
But like he is a legitimate all defense guy. He's turned into that level of player. He
Yeah.
embodies a lot of what the Grizz are on court. And I think like you can't take that away. But again, like it's tough because you kind of have to live and die by what he does. And that's how the roster's built right now. And I think like to his
Yeah.
credit too, like I'll never forget that playoff series against the Jazz because he was nuts in that series. Like, not, I don't think it wasn't last year, it was the year before when he averaged what, like 25 points per game in a 6 game series against them. I'm looking it up right now to make sure that I'm right, but I
It was
know it was like,
something absurd. I know
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I was right. He averaged 26 points per game in a 5 game series against them, shooting like incredibly well from the field. Wasn't as good in this last playoff run, but it's still like has been pivotal in what they do. But I think it's a good selection because offensively, it's not been a great season from him. Like the shot has not been there from outside. He's never really been a good rim finisher, and it's been worse this year. I think again, part of it is probably how much time Desmond Bain missed. And I mean, obviously, Ja has missed a little bit of time too, not tons, but like I do think that that's probably played some part in it. But I don't know how to feel entirely about it. Like they need it to turn around for sure.
Okay. So trivia time on Dillon Brooks. The Memphis Grizzlies have a plus 6.3 net rating with Dillon Brooks on the court, according to play by play stats, which is Daryl Blackboard's site. If you take John Morant off of the court, what do you think, and leave Dillon Brooks on the court? What do you think the Grizzlies' net rating is?
Some reason I want to say it's better, even though that sounds incorrect. That's what I'm going to guess.
It's
Is it better?
it's not better. It is
Not
plus
better.
3.6 still, though. So they still win those minutes. If you take both John Morant and Jaren Jackson off the court, what do you think their net rating is with Dillon Brooks on the court?
It's probably not very good.
It's plus 4.4.
Oh, wow. Okay. See?
So whatever the Memphis Grizzlies like magic is doing here, it works. Like Dillon Brooks is effective. Like he's not a product of John Morant. He's not a product of Jaren Jackson. He's not a product of
He's a product of Dillon
playing
Brooks. Yeah.
with great players. Like he kind of just plays positively and is an important positive player to teams because he is super aggressive. He is super confident. We'll go with sometimes overly so. Like Bill Simmons often talks about the irrational confidence guys. Is Dillon Brooks like the irrational confidence guy in today's NBA? He kind of is, right?
Oh, for sure. Like I think without question.
So you mentioned that playoff series last year against Minnesota. I mean, still averaged 17 points, shot 37% from three in that series, took on really tough defensive assignments. You go to like the Warriors series after he got suspended. right? He had 12 points in game 4, 12 points in game 5, then had the monster like 30 points in game 6. Like, he rises to the occasion in a big way. He defends tough players every single night. And yet, when I was doing Russell Westbrook research for the trade from the Lakers to Utah, just in terms of how Russ was hindering the Lakers at that point, there are only 2 players in the league that have a worse true shooting percentage than Russell Westbrook this season on high usage, basically. One of them is Dillon Brooks. The other is Killian Hayes. His inefficiency is ridiculous. Like, this is, though, by far the least efficient season of his career so far. He is a 48.3 true shooting percentage, which is like insanely low compared to league average this year.
Yeah.
He has like
league average,
80,
what, 55, 56 right now?
It's 57.5. It's even higher than that. Yeah. Like, his true shooting percentage compared to league average is like 17% below league average, which is, again, one of the worst marks in the league. He's never been worse than 89 to 90% below league average in terms of true shooting percentage. I actually kind of think, like, he hasn't gotten worse, I don't think. I think that there actually might be some positive regression coming for Dillon Brooks at some point here as a shooter, too. If that comes in the right situation, I don't know, man. Like, he might actually be huge for them. Like, if they might even have more upside if this shooting spike happens in the playoffs, right? Which I don't think is like a crazy thing to wonder, given that he's a great defender and given his importance, like you said, in terms of like late shot clock creation for them when they need a second side option that isn't Ja Morant. Dillon Brooks making shots and like having this regression to the mean that might be coming at some point, it actually like might be the most important, impactful thing among these role player guys in the playoffs, like point blank among any role player in the league, right?
Yeah. No, and I actually would even go like, I mean, him and Steven Adams tied together too. Like,
yeah,
there a lot of people like, oh, well, the losing streaks happen because of Shannon Sharpe. I'm like, no, losing streaks happen because Steven Adams has been out. Like,
yeah,
they have cratered without him on both ends of the ball, frankly. And like, that's concerning, but also like, I mean, he's been very good. But like, I agree. I think having Dillon, they need to have a better version of Dillon than this for the rest of the season and in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping
and long term,
like, get that.
I think that's probably why they chased guys like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges reportedly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they know that they need a wing shot creator on some level and a guy that can grow with this core. But it also, I think, even goes to further explain why Dillon Brooks is so important for this year, because they didn't upgrade on him this year. And if he has a big playoffs, it's critical. It's enormous. Like, it is absolutely huge for them moving forward. So I'm very fascinated by Dillon Brooks and what this could look like in the playoffs.